this episode, we are going to make a part of networking much easier by focusing on the jobs that different systems do instead of just what they look like. New learners often hear words like server, appliance, legacy system, and connected smart device and picture a pile of unrelated equipment that only matters in big companies. The truth is much simpler than that. All of these systems are on the network because something needs a specific job done, such as storing files, sending mail, filtering traffic, printing documents, watching a doorway, or reporting a temperature reading. They are easier to understand when you stop looking at the hardware first and start thinking about the service being provided. When you learn to spot the job a system is doing, support becomes easier because you stop treating every box with a cable as just another computer and start seeing how each one helps the rest of the network work. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is part of our companion study series. The first book is a detailed study guide that explains the exam and helps you prepare for it with confidence. The second is a Kindle-only ebook with 1,000 flashcards you can use on your mobile device or Kindle for quick review. You can find both at Cyber.Me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good first idea to remember is that a role is the function a system performs for other devices and users. A server is not special just because it is powerful or because it sits in a backroom. It is special because it provides something that other systems depend on, and that something could be files, sign-in services, email, web pages, or many other shared tasks. In a small environment, one machine may carry several roles at the same time, while in a larger environment those roles may be spread across many systems. Some roles are easy for users to notice, while others stay in the background until something breaks. This matters for beginners because people often assume one physical box means one job, when in reality one server can serve many purposes, and sometimes a service the user depends on is not even sitting inside the building at all. File servers are one of the easiest server roles to understand because most people already know what it means to store and share files. A file server gives users and systems a central place to keep documents, spreadsheets, images, forms, and other data that needs to be available beyond one local device. That central storage helps with teamwork, backup planning, and keeping business information in a place the organization can manage instead of scattering it across personal laptops. If the file server has a problem, users may say the shared drive is missing, they cannot open department folders, or saved documents are not where they expect them to be. When a technician recognizes that pattern as a file service role instead of a random computer problem, the troubleshooting path becomes much clearer because the question changes from what is wrong with my computer to what shared storage service is no longer doing its job. Print servers are another common role, and they matter because printing in a business is often more organized than simply plugging one printer into one computer. A print server helps manage printer access for many users, many printers, or both, and it can keep track of jobs, drivers, and which device should receive the print request. When users say the printer is online but their jobs never arrive, or that one department can print while another cannot, the problem may belong to the print service rather than to the printer hardware itself. This is a useful lesson for beginners because printers cause a lot of confusion, and it is easy to blame the machine making the paper move. Sometimes that is correct, but other times the real issue is the shared system that organizes print traffic for the whole group, which is why understanding the role matters as much as noticing the device. Web servers and application servers are roles that many users depend on without thinking about them very much. A web server provides pages or web-based content, while an application server supports a business tool or service that users open through a browser or a client app. In everyday support, this can show up when employees can reach the network but cannot open the company portal, a scheduling tool stops responding, or an internal site loads for one group but not another. The beginner-friendly idea here is that the network can be working in a broad sense, while one service running on top of it is not. That is why a technician should learn to hear the difference between everything is down and this one service is down, because a failure in a web or application role may affect an important task without meaning that the whole office has lost connectivity. Email servers and messaging services are also important roles, even though users usually describe the problem in plain language instead of using the word server. People say mail is not arriving, messages are stuck, calendar items are missing, or sign in to a mailbox keeps failing. Behind those complaints is usually a service that stores mail, sends mail, or supports mailbox access for the device and user. In many environments, that service may live on a local server, a hosted platform, or a cloud-based system, but the role is still the same because the network depends on it to move and store communication. This is helpful for beginners because it shows that a server role is really about function and not location. The service might sit in the building, in a data center, or with a provider somewhere else, but if that role fails, the user still experiences it as an email problem that needs support. Some of the most important server roles are the quiet background services that users rarely name correctly, even though everyone depends on them. Domain Name System, DNS, helps devices find services by name, while Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, DHCP, helps devices receive the basic network settings they need to communicate. Users do not usually call and say DNS is broken or DHCP failed. They say websites will not load by name, a new device cannot get online, or the network seems half alive because some things work and others do not. When a technician can connect those complaints to the role of DNS or DHCP, the problem becomes much easier to understand. Instead of seeing a vague network issue, the technician begins to see that one important background service may be missing, delayed, or giving out the wrong information. Authentication and directory services are also basic roles that shape daily network life, especially in business environments. These are the services that help users sign in, prove who they are, and gain access to the files, printers, systems, and applications they are allowed to use. If this role has trouble, users may still be able to reach the network physically and still fail to do any useful work because shared services no longer recognize them correctly. That is why people often say everything looks normal, but I cannot get into anything, which is a very different clue from a total network outage. For a beginner, the important lesson is that access problems often point to a role connected to identity and permission rather than to a broken cable or dead access point. Once you see that, a lot of confusing login and shared resource problems become easier to sort into the right category. Internet appliances are easier to understand when you think of them as purpose-built systems that exist mainly to handle one focused network or security job. Unlike a general-purpose computer, an internet appliance is usually designed to sit in the path of traffic and do something important every time data moves through it. That job might be routing traffic, filtering websites, blocking threats, scanning content, managing remote connections, or enforcing a company rule about what kinds of traffic are allowed. The reason this matters in support is that internet problems are not always caused by the provider or by the user device. Sometimes the appliance in the middle is shaping, blocking, inspecting, or failing to pass traffic the way the environment expects. Beginners do not need to master every appliance type at once, but they do need to understand that these dedicated systems exist and that they can strongly affect what users are allowed to reach. A firewall appliance is one of the most common examples because it sits between trusted and untrusted traffic and helps decide what should be allowed through. If it is doing its job well, users may never think about it at all. But when the firewall appliance is overloaded, misbehaving, or enforcing a rule that blocks needed traffic, the symptoms can be confusing. Users might report that one website works and another does not, that remote access fails while browsing still works, or that a new application cannot connect even though the network seems healthy. Other appliances may focus on filtering, gateway services, or secure remote access, and users often experience them as restrictions or odd behavior rather than as helpful services. For a beginner, this is a strong reminder that support is often about finding the decision point on the network path, not just blaming the user device first. Legacy systems are another group of network devices that matter a lot in real support because many organizations still depend on older equipment long after the rest of the environment has moved on. A legacy system is usually an older device, operating system, or application that remains in use because the business still needs it. The replacement cost is high, the vendor tool only runs there, or the process around it has not been modernized yet. That could include old desktop systems tied to a machine, aging point-of-sale terminals, older printers and copiers, barcode systems, manufacturing controllers, medical devices, or custom software that no longer has a modern equivalent. For beginners, The big point is that old does not mean unimportant. In many workplaces, the oldest device on the network may support one of the most critical business tasks, which is why technicians need to understand its role before they assume it can be treated like an ordinary, outdated machine. Legacy systems create support challenges because they often depend on older software, older hardware connections, or older network behavior that newer systems no longer use by default. They may be slower, harder to patch, limited in security features, or incompatible with newer tools and services around them. That does not mean they are always failing, but it does mean they require careful thinking because a change elsewhere on the network can suddenly break something that had been working for years. A new wireless rollout, a security update, a browser change, or a stricter sign-in rule can cause a legacy device to stop functioning even though nothing changed inside that device itself. Beginners should remember that legacy support often means protecting a fragile relationship between an older system and a newer environment. If you misidentify the role of that system, you may accidentally disrupt a business process that looked small but was actually essential. Internet of Things, IoT, services are much easier to understand once you stop picturing them as futuristic gadgets and start seeing them as everyday connected devices doing small specific jobs. IoT systems include things like cameras, smart door locks, thermostats, environmental sensors, smart speakers, badge readers, lighting controls, health monitors, and many other devices that gather information or perform actions through network connectivity. These devices are usually built for a narrow task rather than for broad computing, which is why they often have simple screens, very limited settings, or no screen at all. A camera may be powered on but not recording where it should. A smart lock may still function locally, but not report events correctly, or a sensor may be alive, but no longer updating the dashboard people depend on. The key beginner idea is that the visible device is only one part of the service, because the full job may also depend on local network access, a management platform, user permissions, and sometimes cloud communication behind the scenes. By now, the main pattern should be much clearer. Servers, appliances, legacy systems, and IoT services all belong in the same conversation because each one exists to perform a role that other people or systems depend on. A file server stores shared work, a print server organizes printing. DNS and DHCP support the background of communication. Internet appliances shape traffic, legacy systems keep older business processes alive, and IoT devices extend the network into the physical world. The mistake beginners often make is focusing too much on whether the device looks modern, old, large, small, local, or cloud-based. The better first question is what job this system is doing on the network. When you start there, the symptoms users report make more sense, and you are much less likely to chase the wrong part of the environment during support.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.